Hello everyone. In this lecture I'm going to look at just school safety and acts of violence and how teachers can combat that. And we're going to look at the premise of lockdowns and how schools have reacted to that and how some schools have made some mistakes in their lockdown system. And we're also going to look at, when we look at school safety, not just schools that have acts of violence, but also tornadoes and fire drills and items such as that. The paper I'm looking at is School Safety in a Post-Sandy Hook World. This refers to Sandy Hook school massacre that occurred, and it's one of the better papers. And it's kind of, he does we'll go through this and I'll make this PDF available. But he goes through, Kenneth Trump proceeds through, kind of does a PowerPoint presentation on some issues, but then the really good thing is at the end of the PowerPoints, he has some articles that support this as well, so you kind of get a double hit with some facts. However, school shootings and acts of violence have not been anything new. One of the first big acts of violence that was very much televised was the Texas tower shooting, and there's a video that I'm going to show you on this one, and it talks about what happened that day. So you go ahead and watch that video at this time.
What happened in Austin, Texas. There, with police helpless, a lone gunman perched in the University of Texas Tower. What followed was one of the worst mass murders in our history. And for the people of Austin, a moment of crisis.
It was another hot, steamy morning like this one in Austin, Texas. Summer classes were in session, and no one had any suspicion that Monday, August 1st, 1966, was about to be catapulted into history. A deranged graduate engineering student named Charles Whitman, disguised as a maintenance man, dragged a footlocker loaded with high-powered rifles and ammunition to the top of the University of Texas Tower. From the 28th floor observation deck, Whitman would hold the entire city of Austin hostage. For 1 hour and 36 minutes, time stood still for those trapped beneath the tower by a madman whose savage attack shocked the nation. The fact that on the previous night, Whitman had killed his wife and mother would not be discovered until after his rampage had ended. He had left letters explaining that he wished to spare his loved ones from the pain and humiliation he knew his actions would bring into their lives. University employee Beulah Cooper had dropped her 11-year-old son off at the library and started what seemed like just another day. But all that changed shortly before noon.
I heard the sound, and I asked one of the people that I was working with what had happened, and she said, "They're shooting in the tower."
Whitman had planned to start shooting during the 11:30 class change, when this plaza would be filled with students. But he was forced to change his plans when he was discovered by a family of sightseers making their way to the observation deck. They were his first victims that day. Austin's moment of crisis had begun. In 1966, Neil Speltz was an anchorman at KTVC.
Actually, I was in the newsroom, and the police radio said there's a shooting at the tower. And frankly, I thought at first it was the Tower drugstore.
A second report confirmed that the shooting was not at the Tower drugstore, but at the University of Texas Tower.
Then I jumped in a mobile unit as soon as we got that report on the air and came out here just below the tower to begin a broadcast from the location.
This is a warning to the citizens of Austin. Stay away from the university area. There is a sniper on the university tower firing at will.
I could see him on the tower. What he was doing was just walking around methodically shooting.
It was incomprehensible to begin with. You could hear the gunshots, the people were running. There were people hiding and dropping behind buildings, behind cars. In fact, there were several who appeared to be wounded or dead already lying around when I got here.
University student Charlotte Darashori was working in the dean's office when she heard the gunfire and ran out to the plaza to see what was happening.
I realized that there was someone up in the tower shooting down at everyone. I remember coming by the flagpole, and it was just a split-second realization, and I thought, that's the place I've got to get to. I got to the flagpole, and I was out of the line of fire.
Associated Press reporter Robert Hurd followed two highway patrolmen onto the campus. From his vantage point here on the north side of the tower, Charles Whitman had seen the two highway patrolmen take cover behind that building in the left foreground. The next person to appear in his sights would be Robert Hurd.
I'm running as fast as I can until I got to just about this point right here. He cranked off the shot that hit me in the left shoulder just before I was going behind that roof line. And it turned me a quarter turn as I'm running as far as I can. I reach over and I grab this flapping arm and stagger about 3 more yards and fall on my back on that blazing hot pavement. Then I sat up and yelled out, "Help, I'm hit, I'm hit." And some people over there yelled back to me, "Lie down, lie down." They were afraid that he could still see me, but he couldn't because at this point I am behind that roof line.
Thus far, Whitman was unchallenged and firing at will. The gunfire kept Beulah Cooper trapped in this building, unable to get to her son, even though he was in a building just a few yards away.
So I found a telephone and called the library and made sure that my son was safe. And then I came back to this store where I looked up at the tower and watched the shooting.
The sniper was in complete control at that point. The police were not that visible. I'm sure they were here, but they also were taking cover. It really was like a small-scale war going on.
The ambulances were arriving on campus at just about that time, and within 3 minutes I was aboard one and en route to the hospital.
It's a madhouse here at Breckenridge Hospital. At least 17 persons are here undergoing treatment. We have had unconfirmed reports that 2 persons have died. There is a chronic need for blood. If you have a desire to give blood, contact the Travis County Blood Bank. Please stay away from the emergency room entrance and stay away from the university area. Another shot. 2 shots in quick succession. There may be 2 people on the university tower. There may be 2 people up there.
Whitman had deliberately created that impression using an arsenal which included a carbine, a sawed-off shotgun, a 35mm rifle, a 6mm rifle with a telescopic sight, and several handguns. He lashed one rifle to the railing and would quickly fire off a round, then hurry back to a second rifle and fire away, making it appear there were 2 gunmen up here.
The police sent an airplane with a sharpshooter to shoot at him. Whitman shot at the plane, hit the plane a time or 2, so they went away. But they were able to determine as they circled around the top of the tower that there was just 1 person doing all that damage.
There are several people laying out on the mall. 3 of them may be shot. The others may just be laying there.
It was an amazing sight. You had students who would dart out and try to grab a person who was injured or wounded and haul them off to safety.
Did you have any trouble getting them up, or did any shots come close to you while you were out there?
No shots came close to me. It's just the last one. He was dead. He was dead weight. He was a little hard to pick up, too limp.
University student Graham Ellison, seen here, was just one of many people who risked their lives. Ellison knew that the person in his arms was already dead. In spite of that, Ellison carried the body out of the line of fire.
Really, I don't know how long I was here. It could have been 10 minutes or it could have been 8 hours. I really didn't think about looking up there because I knew the consequences would be lethal.
The former Marine sharpshooter was lethal, killing 13 people that day, hitting some of his victims at phenomenal distances, up to a quarter of a mile away. The distances proved to be a big problem for police.
They didn't have weapons that could reach up to the top of a building. Officers had to go home and get their deer rifles to accomplish that.
The Austin police knew that their homespun remedy wasn't going to be enough. 45 minutes after he had started shooting, the sniper was still terrorizing the city. Whitman had to be stopped, and it had to be done quickly. The only way to accomplish that was to go up and get him. Patrolman Houston McCoy made his way through the underground tunnels to the tower elevator.
Taking my shotgun off safety as approached the elevator doors to be prepared for anything when the elevator doors open.
McCoy had no way of knowing that a few other police officers and civilians had already gone upstairs. Inside, they were closing in on the sniper. Outside, the heat was on.
While I was broadcasting, 2, 3, 4 people came running toward me, and I thought, what in the world is going on here? Those people were actual citizens who went home and got their own deer rifles, were able to keep a heavy enough fire to keep the sniper pinned down so he could not do nearly as much damage as he did the first few minutes that he was up there shooting.
Patrolman Romero Martinez was only 1 floor below the observation deck when he was approached by a civilian, Alan Crum. They decided to shoot to kill.
Alan said, "Hey, buddy, you're not going by yourself. Let's go on up and let's do it military style." I said, "Come on." We went on up, and
We had to turn up the last turn of the stairs. Ellen said, are we playing for keeps? And I said, you damn right.
Officer McCoy was right on their heels.
As I finished climbing the stairs, entered the small reception room.
Here on the observation deck level, McCoy found Martinez and Alan Crum. They couldn't be sure what would happen next. Whitman might appear at one of the windows at any second. They were alone and out of touch.
I went out the door, and I looked towards the east, and I could see that he was clear. I peeked around the corner, and I could see the north side was clear, so I told Ellen to come out.
Up to this point, we didn't know how many snipers there were up here. We didn't know where they were located, and we had no plan. But Martinez had done got out the door, and we had to back him up.
This view of the observation deck shows the officer's predicament. Martinez and McCoy had come out the door on the south side of the tower and headed north along the walkway on the east side. Alan Crum stayed by the door on the south side and faced west, watching for the sniper, whose exact location was still unknown.
I followed Martinez on around. Martinez was on his hands and knees here. Martinez looked up at me and motioned me to get down. As I was stooping down, well, several splats of bullets hit right above my head here. One of my worries, as I was working my way around here, I kept checking this upper area, being aware that there might be a sniper up above us. As we got up to this clock extension, I was in the worry of somebody being around on the other side. My thoughts at that time was of my wife and 2 sons, and contact lenses don't fail me now. Martinez remained in a crawling position, and I'll remain in a position up against the wall in a scoot down position with a shotgun over Martinez's head.
My mind was blank. It felt like I was just a robot. I know there was fear. I know there was fatigue. I know I was feeling the heat, but I couldn't feel it.
The 3 men were about to find out that Whitman was posted at the northwest corner. Crum panicked when he thought he heard Whitman moving along the west walkway and fired a shot into the wall. When Whitman turned in response, it gave Martinez and McCoy the opportunity they'd been waiting for.
Martinez came on around and started firing his pistol. I jumped out past Martinez, shot the sniper, white head man, full in the face, instantly jacked in a second shot, and shot him again and hit him inside the face.
I grabbed the shotgun from McCoy, and I fired one more time, running up at him, and I fired just before he hit the deck.
I came over to look at the sniper, and at some point I had an urge to throw him over the top of the tower. But I didn't.
This is Neil Spells with the bulletin from the KTBC radio newsroom. The sniper is dead. The sniper, apparently tentatively identified as Charles J. Whitman, is dead.
1 hour and 36 minutes after he fired the first shot, Charles Whitman became the last casualty of the day. Suddenly, just as quickly as it began, the crisis was over.
People just walked out from behind their tree or their fence, whatever they'd been hiding behind.
People had been listening to the radio, hidden away in nooks and crannies and classrooms, and they just flooded out in front of the tower. And what really scared me later was, what if I'd had a wrong report? What if he had not actually been apprehended and all those people moved out there in clear view where he had been killing people just a few moments before?
Beulah Cooper moved anxiously through the crowd, finally able to join her son.
His hands were as cold as ice. He was scared. He was really scared. He just gripped my hand and didn't turn it loose until we got to the car. Well, the first thing he said is, hey, I could have been killed.
Charles Whitman did kill 15 people and wound 31 others. Any hope of understanding why he did it died with him on the observation deck that hot summer afternoon. A portion of Whitman's last letter, written only hours before his attack, revealed his fears about his own state of mind. Quote, "After my death, I wish that an autopsy be performed on me to see if there's any visible physical disorder. Maybe research can prevent future tragedies of this type." An autopsy revealed Whitman had a brain tumor. He also was known to have used amphetamines or speed, but experts say neither was sufficient to elicit Whitman's anger toward the world.
The mystery of this ghastly incident remains, why he did it. But we talked about SWAT teams that came about as a result of this.
As a direct result, Barbara, the first team that developed was the Los Angeles Police Department.
So with that video, that's kind of an old 2020 clip. But with that video, we see that school massacres or just acts of violence have occurred for many years. There's actually another research article that we talk about in another course I teach, where we break down all the attacks that have happened ever since the 1500s and 1600s when we were here. There's cases of people attacking tribal schools and in the old colonial days, and there's all acts of violence. And you can actually go to Google and type in historical attacks or acts of violence in school, and there's Wikipedia pages which has breakdowns of all kinds of events that have occurred. So I didn't want to just make this whole lecture about Newtown, but I wanted to show you that there was violence before then. That was clearly an act of violence where he shot the people from the tower. There's always been an argument that he had a brain tumor, which the video talked about. Researchers and scientists have debated on whether that actually caused his act of violence. There's been no conclusion on that. So as the article continues, we always have to talk about Newtown because that's what the book talks about. It talks about the post-Sandy Hook world, and that's where we get into this. This chart right here says that the direction of school safety as prevention, intervention, security, preparedness, and training go down. So this chart kind of threw me for a loop. But what it's talking about is as we do less prevention, we bring our security away, then we see that serious incidents and lawsuits and parent and media concerns increase. So there is a relationship. They're saying that we as school need to get better trained and have security in items such as that. I'm going to bring in at this time a 60 minutes clip on Newtown. It's about 15 minutes long, but the good thing about these YouTube videos, the way I'm putting these in here is, if you want to just skip the lecture, you can just slide on past. But the Newtown article, Newtown 60-minute piece was very good, and it's actually going to tie into the rest of this lecture, and you'll see when we talk about lockdown. So I'm going to bring that in now at this time.
20-year-old Adam Lanza launched his massacre at home. Officials say Lanza shot his mother Nancy multiple times, killing her in her bed. Lanza then took 4 guns legally registered to his mother and drove this black Honda to Sandy Hook Elementary School, about 5 miles away. Students there had finished reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and the building's doors had been locked. Then, around 9:30 Friday morning, staffers in the front office heard popping noises. Police say those were likely the sounds of Lanza shooting out the glass of one of the school doors. Lanza entered the building carrying a Bushmaster AR-15 assault rifle with 2 semi-automatic handguns inside the pockets of his military-style cargo pants. Police say he was also carrying hundreds of rounds of ammunition in multiple magazines. There were more popping sounds. Someone in the front office keyed the microphone on the school's public address system in a frantic attempt to sound a warning. As the gunfire continued, 911 calls were made, and just before 9:36, a police dispatcher radioed the first alert.
67 Sandy Hook School. Callers indicating she thinks there's someone shooting in the building.
The precise sequence of what happened next is unclear, but we do know Lanza headed down a hallway towards the section of the school containing the classrooms of the youngest students. There, he killed 20 first graders, shooting all of them numerous times with the .223 assault rifle. 6 adult women, including the principal, the school psychologist, and teachers were also killed. Police radio logs suggest the shooting lasted about 10 minutes. The slaughter ended as the first police officers arrived on the scene. Sources say Lanza was briefly spotted at the end of a hallway. He ducked from view. The officers heard a final volley of shots. Lanza had used one of the handguns to take his own life. ATF officials now tell us Lanza and his mother went shooting together at various ranges over the past several years. But, Scott, they still don't know if Adam Lanza practiced in recent weeks.
Bob, you mentioned that there was a fourth gun. Do the investigators have any theory on what he intended to do with that?
Well, that fourth gun, it was a shotgun capable of carrying a large drum of ammunition. Lanza, when he went into the school, left it behind in the car's trunk. Police say they're not sure what he intended to do with it, Scott, but it suggests maybe he was thinking of a broader attack.
Bob, thanks very much.
I apologize. That was not the 60-minute clip. That was the 2020 piece. That is the correct order I wanted to show them. I'm going to save the 60-minute piece for the end. It's a longer, in-depth one, and I actually wanted to save that one for the end because it shows the lockdown and how that actually kind of worked when you look at in relations with these slides. So I really want to show the chain of events first, and that was the piece right there. In that video, just to hit some points that they already discussed, was they had a safety door at Newtown that locked after the Pledge of Allegiance, but he shot the glass beside it. So the lock did not fail. It was just that's how he gained access to it. This next slide right here talks about the continuing of threats and responses. So I want to pull away from Newtown just briefly, because when you're looking at threats and schools as unsafe or safe, we also have to take in consideration this point right here, number 2, weather and natural disasters. Tornadoes, especially in the Midwest, and recently in Mississippi in February and March, but tornadoes and weather such as that can cause a threat to the school. There's a video next on how to do proper tornado drills. I know all of y'all have done tornado drills at your school, but have you ever thought about how that it actually should be done? And this is a video that actually shows a proper tornado drill at a school, and it's an elementary school. If you have a speaker, you may wish to turn it down, because for about a minute you're going to hear that tornado siren. It's just going to beat constantly in your head. But we'll show that video at this time.
The severe weather drill is over. Students, thank you for doing your best. We appreciate it. Thank you.
that was a very interesting video, and I'm glad they turned the siren off because it kind of gets old after a while. In case you've ever seen what a tornado does to a school, there is a video that I can show you now, which is what an L5 tornado does to an actual school. No one was in it, luckily. So you see why the duck and cover is important, because you'll see the debris come through there. In case you're curious, there's an L0 tornado, and it goes to L5. L5 would be the most powerful tornado. And it's really rated on how much it consumes and how powerful the winds are, but they have to really rate it after the fact. So it's not like, okay, here comes an L5. They have to look at the damage and the destruction. And this one was rated as an L5 after the destruction. But no one was injured at the school because no one was there. So I'm just going to show you. You saw the video of the drill, and I'm going to show you a video of what inside a hallway of a school that gets hit by an L5. Okay, so that video shows the importance of ducking and covering. I don't really know if ducking and covering can protect someone from an F5 tornado, not with that kind of damage falling on you, but that is the only situation and the only remedy that most schools have in situations like that. We'll see in a minute a new creation that they're trying to do with federal money, which is kind of like a bomb shelter for students. Continuing with this slide, you see on the bottom it says lone wolf actors or active shooters or terrorists. That is the big fear, excuse me, for many police and schools is the lone wolf, the person who really hasn't ranted or raved, who has no connection to terrorism, who is just acting on a belief that whatever that belief is. It could be a sociopath such as Eric Harris at Columbine, or it could be someone who's having mental illness, or it could be just someone who's upset over a custody battle or a romance gone wrong. That happened in one state where a guy shot a cafeteria worker. They were in a relationship and they were going through a divorce, so he went to the school and shot the lady. So those are lone wolves that we just don't see coming. Custody issues is the #1 kidnapping issue in elementary schools. That happens a lot, and that's why elementary really needs to have a very in-place checkout system. Bomb threats, death threats, misuse of technology. We'll see that in a minute. Bomb threats happen a lot, especially with social media. As I scroll down to the next section of this man's very good presentation. It says continuing of threats and responses. Excuse me. Security. Look at this right. It says reporting. There needs to be a system of reporting threats. And we actually did a research article where we discussed sexual misconduct of educators. And one of our conclusions was there needed to be an anonymous reporting system for anyone who suspected that would be reviewed by police or some kind of legal team on whether they need to send that to the justice system. Preparedness is a big key, and you're going to see that over and over again when you look at Newtown and you look at the rest of the slides, is they're talking about practicing drills, actually having drills where people, what would you do in this situation? Many times when I was in school, we did a fire drill, we did a tornado drill, we really never did an earthquake drill. They said that the earthquake was the same as the tornado drill. So I was like, okay. We never did an active shooter drill. When I taught high school, I was told that the active shooter drill was continuing in process and they were working on it and it was on file, but they did not want to publicize it because they didn't want a shooter to know the drill and the procedures. So that was 1 year after Columbine. So definitely things have changed now, and there's a push that teachers need to practice the drills. We also see that at Newtown, about 2 weeks before Newtown, they actually did a drill. They did an active shooter drill. Schools need to practice the active school drills. Sometimes they may go too far. Some schools may absolutely go too far on their practicing, and they may scare the students. This is a video of an active shooter drill at a school that I would make the argument is going too far and possibly emotionally scarring the students. So you definitely don't want to do that. So watch this video.
How do you train students and teachers to prepare for a school shooter? Well, often by pretending there actually is one. These drills may help, but the drama can be intense, even if it's all an act. And it's not just the kids who say they're scared. Here's ABC's David Wright.
I'm gonna kill everybody! Nobody's getting out of here! It's every parent's worst nightmare, an active shooter on campus, threatening to kill innocent kids. In this case, just a drill, but a terrifyingly realistic drill. And that's now an issue. How do you strike a balance between preparing kids and scaring the pants off them? It may be just a drill, but the trauma is real. Outside Tampa, Florida yesterday, parents and students say Jewett Middle School got it wrong. The school there held a drill without warning in which police officers showed up on campus, weapons drawn.
Our principal had announced that we were going to have a lockdown.
7th grader Lauren Marino and her siblings frantically texted their mom. Police came in with guns, and I'm kind of scared.
We actually thought someone was going to come in here and kill us.
Their mom was scared too.
Well, I'm panicking because I'm thinking that it's, a legitimate shooter is coming.
Xavier Tate was scared too. His dad raced to the school, unaware it was only a drill.
My husband almost got a ticket coming over here yesterday. He was doing 130.
The school has now apologized to the parents, and the local police chief now says officers won't use weapons in future drills, but the school will continue to hold unannounced lockdowns. The fact is, ever since Columbine 15 years ago, the U.S. has had more than 160 active shooter incidents. That's about one a month. And as we saw in Sandy Hook, even the youngest kids aren't safe. So in school districts across the country, lockdown drills are now as common as fire drills. Some go as far as covering students in fake blood and recruiting volunteers to play dead in the hallways, all in an effort to make the drills more realistic.
Attention, this is a drill. We need to lock down.
The modern version of duck and cover.
Please go behind my desk.
The teacher locks the door, pulls down the shade. Everyone's told to keep quiet.
It's kind of scary, huh?
The kids huddle quietly under the teacher's desk.
Do you know why they do this drill? Do you worry that this scares students?
We do, but we practice enough that we hope that the students are as staff is, getting used to the idea. We have to.
How long do these go on for?
5 minutes, I think, is maybe the longest we've ever had.
The teacher in one classroom we visited in Colorado fully supports these drills. Holly Carpenter is a graduate of Columbine High School.
When you look at those kids, are you always thinking somebody could come and take away their lives like that?
No. When I look at those kids, I think how great they are. I think how lucky I am to teach them. And I think about, I wonder what they're going to be like when they grow up.
That day changed her life. It's why she eventually went into teaching, and it's why she takes these drills very personally.
I always get the lump in my throat because it's not about the flashbacks of Columbine or any of that for me. It is about the thought, see me getting now. It's about the thought of anyone even wanting to hurt me kids.
The charter school where she teaches, Skyview Academy, does the basic lockdown drill most Colorado schools do.
What? Nobody's getting up.
And just last week, the teachers got a new kind of training.
So how did you feel?
Yeah, way more empowered and lots of adrenaline.
Jody Don is a former SWAT team member who responded to 2 active shootings in Colorado.
If you see a gun like this open, what does that mean?
He's teaching them how to recognize when the shooter is reloading his gun.
He's out, right?
And teaching them defense tactics.
Oh, there you go. Good, good.
How and when to pounce.
Cowboy approach? Sure. But may it save a life?
At Skyview Academy, they're trying out the new active shooter training for teachers only. It's held at night, no students involved. In the gym, Jody Don and his trainers are teaching the teachers how to take down a shooter. The atmosphere, boisterous would be an understatement. The teachers, including Holly Carpenter, are loving it.
You think in real life you could do it? Or it doesn't matter?
But not all teachers support the staging of active shooter drills at schools. Last month, a pre-K teacher from Virginia wrote an op-ed that quickly went viral. She writes, "We are rounding up and silencing a generation of school children and terrifying those who care for them. It's time to stop rehearsing our deaths and start screaming." Of course, the pretend gunman we saw isn't really fighting back. I asked Joe D. Don about that.
But is the 100-pound teacher or student really going to be able to take down the 200-pound gunman?
Let's try it out. You just saw what happened to me. Did you guys see what happened to me?
But he wasn't exactly fighting back.
Right. Let's get Joe over here in a minute. He's about 220. You pick anybody out in this crowd and we'll see what happens. Want to do that?
Let's do it.
All right.
So we got Holly Carpenter in her Columbine sweatshirt to do it again.
I want you to do it again. But this time the guy's going to fight back a little bit. Okay?
This time, the gunman resisting her efforts to disarm him.
good.
Jody Don also encourages the teachers to enlist their students to help. You're saying enlist the football team, enlist the kids.
Yeah, enlist the
so
kids.
they're asking a lot of people to be heroes who don't have the training or who aren't even necessarily adults.
You bet. They don't have the training because we're not preparing them. When they come to this program, we're giving them a little bit of firearm knowledge.
The question is, does this really protect people, or does it put them in greater danger? I would imagine there are a lot of law enforcement types who would say, look, don't be a hero.
You know, we're not advocating the teacher to go out in the hall and go on a suicide mission. What we're advocating is, here's some knowledge, here's a little better option for you. We are talking at that split second when they know that they've done everything they could prior to making that choice, whether it's evacuating, barricading, fortifying their location, to where that's no longer working, and I've got 5 seconds to figure out if I'm going to try to do something to save myself or my kids.
If you're staring down the barrel of a gun, act, don't hide.
Right, exactly.
For one final exercise, the teachers do their normal duck and cover drill and see how they're sitting ducks. Then everyone gets something to throw. In this case, a tennis ball, but in real life it might well be a hole punch or a desk chair or a dictionary. This time when the active shooter comes in, he suddenly finds he's the sitting duck. Would it work like this if the bullets were real, or if this were a class full of kids, not teachers? Hard to really know. To a kid, a scene like this could feel terrifyingly real and leave behind a lasting impression, but one that might save a life when it matters most. I'm David Wright for Nightline in Highlands Ranch, Colorado.
Okay, that video showed a good active shooter, shooting around. They were shooting blanks. A good training for teachers. I would probably not do that if I had students in the school. That would be an okay drill to do with teachers so they could hear the sounds of gunshots in the hallway and they would know that, because at the Newtown, you'll see at the end, at the Newtown, the person even said, I heard the first gunshot and I thought something had fallen. So, if you can hear that acoustic and get that memory of what that really is, then you would know that. You have that as a memory reference. The last part of the video where the teacher's attacked, we'll see this article makes the argument that that's not a good idea. And it does not work. But they probably were saying that those teachers were cornered, so they had to attack. But we'll see that. On this slide right here, it says that there's a big issue of social media threats. One-third of all threats are coming through social media. They looked at 315 documented school bomb threats, shooting threats, hoaxes, and acts of violence in 43 states during the first 6 months of this school year. And they found that the vast majority of incidents studied turned out to be false reports. However, 17 incidents were serious and stand out. And then they list those. They also give more numbers on the next slide. So let's just put that in perspective. 315 threats and 17 were real. So that means every threat that you get, in all likelihood, is not real, but because there are real threats in there, you have to take everyone serious. So schools definitely need to have a social media monitoring system, and that goes, of course, you can't hire someone just to analyze social media, but you need people who can report that. That's always important as well. On the next slide, we see some more statistics from these, and it says that our study revealed a disturbing trend in how threats are delivered, with more than 1/3 being sent by social media. Electronic was 35%. Bathroom graffiti was 15%. So threats actually go more likely from social media and then the bathroom. A note found in the school, phone threats, verbal threats. I have no proof of this, but I would say police threats, phone threats at 11% probably have gone away because phones are easier to track and they can look at phone records on there. So the bathroom graffiti, there's no security camera in there, and they can pretty much get away with writing stuff like that. So those are interesting numbers that I thought I definitely want to share that. This next little slide right here gives you some examples. It says of weird threats, I would call that. and these are threats that people have done towards schools just to cover a crime. 2% or 7 threats were linked to bank robberies. And one reason because people do that is they threaten a school so the police will respond to that school in force, and then they'll go rob the bank on the other side of town. Look at the states: Ohio, Missouri, it's all over the map. 3 in Georgia, 2 in Colorado. Michigan. So that's disturbing that people are actually callous enough to make threats towards a school just so that they could cover up a crime. One guy accused, he did a fake school threat just to get back at someone who because of a drug deal gone bad. So some threats are without merit and some threats have weird motives behind them. At this time, I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to publish it. And the reason is YouTube, when I get to about an hour, YouTube does not like those videos. After an hour, it takes a long time to set them up. So I'm going to do a part 1 and part 2. So there will be a part 2 to this. So at this point, I'm going to pause this and start part 2.